Bum-ba-da-dum. Howdy, y'all. Banjo Ben here playing the first recorded G run on my new baby, 1950 0028 Brazilian. Loving this thing. I just got it out of the shop after a year in repair, so I'm happy to introduce her to you. Hey, today we're going to talk about something that's vital and central to being a good bluegrass rhythm guitar player, and that's what I simply call the bluegrass G chord. It looks like that. Now that looks and sounds different than maybe the G chord that you first learned when you were learning how to play the guitar, what we might call just the traditional shape, and that sounds and looks like this. And why do we need to learn how to play both of those in bluegrass guitar? That's what today's lesson is all about. But beyond that, there are some things that we can do with that bluegrass G chord guitar shape that we can't do with the other shape that are hallmarks of bluegrass rhythm guitar. So whether you already play that shape or not, you're going to love today's lesson because it's going to expand your understanding and your knowledge of when to play that shape and why. I want to start actually with a little listening exercise. You want to do that? So I recorded a mandolin, very bluesy, spacey solo to Fireball Mel, and I played backup on the guitar rhythm using both the traditional shape and then what I call the bluegrass G chord shape. I want you to listen. I want you to ask yourself a few questions. Which one sounds better? Which one feels better? And why? See if you can describe to yourself why is that, and then we'll talk about it. Check it out. Which one did you like better? Just tell me, the traditional or the bluegrass shape? I think you probably like the bluegrass shape better, but there's a reason why. There's a reason why. If you'll notice, for the sake of comparison, I did not change hardly anything as far as my right hand goes, as far as the shapes or playing fancy runs or licks. I wanted you just to hear the chords. And there's a reason why that mandolin solo sat better on top of rhythm with the bluegrass G chord shape. And that's what this lesson is all about. I'm going to explain it all to you, from the theory to the advantages that we have in playing that shape from time to time, or maybe most of the time. Hey, if you're not a Gold Pick member at banjobenclark.com, you need to be, because you can access this full 30-minute lesson plus hundreds more on banjo, guitar, and mandolin. If you're watching here on YouTube, Facebook, I would be honored to have you on board. Okay, let's jump into the theory of this bluegrass G chord shape and see the differences between that and maybe the first one that you learned when you began playing guitar. Let's talk a little theory here, and I'm not going to give you too much theory. I don't want you to zone out. I'm not going to give you more than I think you need to know. In fact, if you want to know more theory than what we cover here, it's all there on the side for you Gold Pick members. But when we're playing major chords on the instrument, and I'm going to speak in generalities just to keep from chasing rabbits, we are playing 3-note chords. That's what's required to make a major triad chord. Now, what 3 notes is that? Well, it's the root, the third, and the fifth of that major scale. All right, so let's go back to the key of G, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. And if we were to play a G major scale, and I'll just keep it on one string to help you visualize it, and we start on a G note. Let's start there on the 3rd fret, and we play the major scale pattern up the neck. It looks like this. There are 7 total notes in the major scale, and then it starts over with another G note, goes up another octave. Now, if we were to put numbers on each one of those notes, it would sound like this. 1, that's the root. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. And the major triad is made up of the 1, the 3, and the 5 played all at the same time. So whenever we play this traditional G chord shape, what we're doing on those bottom 3 strings, listen, we're playing the 1st, 3rd, and the 5th notes of the G major scale all at the same time. 1, 3, 5. If you're curious about the actual scale notes, that's G, B, D. And then the rest of our strings that we're playing with that shape, 1, 3, 1. So that's also important to know, that whenever we play a major scale, or really our chord or any other chord on our instrument's neck, we're not going to necessarily play the 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5 in order. That's what voicings are all about, okay? So, but we are, if we're going to play a major chord, a major triad, as far as the definition goes, we've got to play at least the 1, 3, and 5 once. So let's take another voicing and look at it. Let's go to this G major chord. What notes are those? 1, 5. Okay, it's not in order. 1, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. Okay, so there's another G major triad chord, just in a different voicing. The 1, 3s, and the 5s are mixed up a little differently from our original traditional shape. Very cool. Okay, so out of all 3 of those scale notes, the 1, 3, and the 5, there's one that stands out in significance. Okay, it's, yeah, the root's special because that gives us the home base of the chord. The 5 special is that dominant tone. But the 3 is a very special note. Do you know why? Why is the 3 really special? The 3 is really special because it determines whether or not the chord and the scale that it's attached to is major or minor. Okay, so when we play it like we just did, it's a major chord. But if you were to take that 3rd tone and you were to drop it down just 1/2 step, which is 1 fret lower, you're going to turn that entire chord from major into minor. I'm going to tie all this together and tell you why this is important regarding bluegrass music, but we just need to cover the theory. So let's go back to this voicing. And if you remember, there's only one time that we play the 3rd in this particular voicing. Right there on that 3rd string. If I were to lower that 1 fret just by lifting my middle finger, it goes down to a flat 3 or a B flat. And now if I play that voicing, there's a G minor chord. Major, minor. Okay, what if we wanted to do that to our original traditional shape down here? Could we do it? You could. It's just going to be more difficult because there are 2 3rd tones that we're playing. Remember? We play right there on that A string. So we could drop that down a 1/2 step. So now you're doing this. But there's a minor chord, right? But then you've got this open B string. That's a 3rd. And that would need to drop down to a B flat. How would you do that? Well, you can't unless you retune or you cover it up with another note. So you could do something like that. And there's a G minor chord. But that begs the question, why are we worried about playing major and minor chords? So I'm glad you've stuck around this long to hear the answer. Because bluegrass music in its identity, in its core, very much dances on the ridgeline between major and minor territory. That's kind of what makes it sound good so often, is major chords being played by the band, that being the context, but then the singer or the instrument that's soloing or filling is playing very minor, at times sounding licks, things like this. Okay, it's this great soup pot mixture of minor and blues and major tones, and that is what you're going to often hear and play in bluegrass. That brings us back to why we would even want to play this particular bluegrass G chord guitar shape. Can you guess now why we want to do that? Well, if you'll look at our particular shape, what is it made of? Well, let's just examine the notes. It starts with that same root. We're not going to play the 5th string. I'll show you why and how in a little bit. Then we've got our open D. There's a 5, a 1, and then I'm fretting the 2nd or the 3rd frets on the first 2 strings. 5, 1. Listen again. 1, 5, 1, 5, 1. What is missing? The 3. The 3 is missing. Guess what? Is this chord a major or a minor chord? Can you tell me? It's neither. It's not major, it's not minor, it's technically not even a chord. It's just an interval that we're playing. All we're playing is 1s and 5s. You're like, no, that's a G chord. Not technically, because it doesn't have that 3rd tone. It doesn't have that major 3, and that's the beauty of it. Because it doesn't have that 3rd tone, it's neither major nor minor, and that goes back to the listening exercise that we listened to at Fireball Mill. That means that both major and minor sounding things can be played and sung over it, and there'd be less tension, less clashing than if we're playing this big open major G chord. Okay, so that's the big theoretical reason, the big explanation for why we will often choose to play this shape in bluegrass is to get rid of those third tones. There are other reasons, we're going to get into those, and advantages for playing this, great little rhythm tricks that we can do. But I think it's important for you to understand why this chord shape is so common. It removes that third tone. Now let's talk briefly on actually how to make it, because if you're not used to playing this shape, it can be a little different. We're still going to play that low G note on the 3rd fret with our middle finger. But then underneath that, we're going to use the fatty part of our finger to rest lightly over the top of the 5th string, the A string, so that it doesn't make any sound at all. Whenever we strum all the way through, you can't hear that string getting popped, but it's there. And actually, it serves as a bit of a percussive sound too. Then we've got an open D and G, and then with our last 2 fingers, ring and pinky, we're going to put them on the 3rd frets of that 1st and 2nd string. Can you practice making that? That means that our index finger is free to do all kinds of things. We'll talk about that in our next video segment. But this is the bluegrass G shape that you're going to often use, especially when you're playing real groovy, bluesy sounding stuff. When I talk about this at cabin camps, I'll try to do it here. But you know, many of the songs that we play have very major sounding notes in it, right? So I think about like Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. So that tone for grace, that's a beat. It's a major sounding melody. Amazing Grace. Man, that traditional G chord shape sounds great under that. So I'm often still going to use that traditional G chord shape to color songs that sound more major. You Are My Sunshine is another one. You are my sunshine. So that shape would sound really good for that, right? But if you take another song like Man of Constant Sorrow, I am a man, that word is usually sung as a flat 3rd. And you play that. You play this traditional G chord shape over that melody. I am a... You hear that? It's hard to even sing because they clash so much. But if you were to play our bluegrass G chord shape, I am a man, it sits right on top of it because I'm not providing you a major 3rd or a minor 3rd sound from this shape. I'm just giving you 1/5s, 1/5s. You know who else does this all the time? Rock and roll and pop. They do... All right, some of the first things that we learn whenever we're playing guitar, and that shape there, that is called a power chord, and all that is 1/5-1. It's a very safe thing to play, right? You can jump all over the neck and play your major chords that way, and that's why they're using it too. It's easy to play, and it's got these great interval sounds, and you can play all kinds of notes over the top of it and not run into a lot of clashing. Okay, so that was a lot, but I hope that you learned something. And what I want to do next is I want to talk about the advantages for why we play this particular chord, because it's going to allow me to get G run a little easier, faster. So whenever we're playing really high tempo stuff, I prefer this chord. We're also going to get some effects that we only get in bluegrass, like that slam. I call it a G chord slam. Also, like our bass hammers. That works better with this shape. So we're going to talk about several of those. And if you're not a Gold Pick member, you're not going to be able to watch it. So come on over to the site. Actually, go to joinbanjobin.com, become a Gold Pick member. You can see the rest of this full video, hundreds more lessons, y'all. Plus, you get discounts in the general store, all kinds of good stuff. I'll see you over there. And if you're a Gold Pick member, just click on the next video.